Welcome, Warlords, to Saga Thursday, your source for that regular Saga content. I'm here with Lord Montague once again. How's it going, buddy?
Rodge. Excellent. Can't wait to jump in.
Yeah, definitely. So we're a week behind our schedule there. We try to record during the great blizzard of 19, right? 2019. Our Skype connection couldn't quite handle it, but we're back, and there's a couple items developed since then, so it kind of worked out pretty good. We're gonna talk about the news, what we've been up to for hobby stuff, talk about the games we've been into, and then we're gonna talk about Adepticon. So I believe it wasn't quite ready to register last times, and we didn't know if the details were going to be up there as far as how everything was going to work. But those are up there now, and we're gonna talk about that. We're kind of phoning it in a little bit as far as a topic here this time. We didn't do any research or anything. Both been busy with family stuff over the holidays, so just come along with us on our journey here. I'm sure we've got a lot of interesting things to talk about. So first up, we got some Saga news here, bud. Hot today, as we're going to print. The Saga World Cup 2020 has been announced, and I believe you saw that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. It just popped across the wire, and Clever, they have their own domain up. It's I'm sure you get the link, but it's sagaworldcup.com. All the details.
I knew I should have bought it. Darn.
Right, maybe next year.
Next year. Cool. Well, that makes it easier, I guess, to find the information. I know it was previously run through a Facebook group, and like people had to be added or get approved or something like that. So maybe there was a little barrier there to communication. But it is in the United States this year. I think we rumored that last time, or maybe it was confirmed last time. I don't recall. But it's going to be down in Texas, I believe Houston, Texas, Monte.
So get this. I'm going to get it wrong. It is. I looked it up because I think it says Rock Hill, and I'm like, okay Rock Hill. But sure Rock Hill is about 25 miles north of Austin, Texas. So I'm guessing kind of a suburb of Austin.
Okay, that sounds good. It's taking place at a convention, Millennium Con.
Yes.
Do you have the information up, Monty? Are you a professional?
I do.
All right.
I do right now.
Just hit us with it.
It's let's see. It is so the big event runs from Thursday, November 5th through Sunday, November 8th, but the Saga World Cup is on Saturday and Sunday. So that'll be November 7th and 8th, and it's in Wingate Hotel. It's 5 games. I think they're looking for 12 international teams.
That's what I recall.
That's their goal. Yep. That's their goal, 12 teams.
So 12 four-man teams. 2 of those teams are reserved for United States players who played last year.
Correct.
So everybody who brought the gold home get to play again. And then they're hoping that internationals fill up the rest of the slots, and then if they don't, I believe May 1st, some more American teams can start joining in. So
correct,
makes sense. They want a full event, but they don't want like 10 American teams. I don't right. Maybe they do. I don't know. But
exactly.
Cool. So I guess we'll have to wait till May 1st to see. If you're going to go, are you going to go, Monty? Do you have plans?
I want to go. This fits in with my schedule. I want to be there. I really do. This is pretty awesome. There's a convention. You can visit Austin. And then my wife was pointing out to me that it's about 90 minutes away from San Antonio, which is a beautiful city itself. So if you want to build a little time on the front or back end, you can make this a big deal. Yeah.
So like it literally just came out today.
Yes.
It's far enough out that it could happen with me. I will say that my wife's brother lives in San Antonio.
Wow.
He's got extra room down there. So something could happen there. Turn it into a family trip. It's an option. I guess the one thing is that having to wait until May 1st to see, but I guess we'll probably get an indication before then.
I think so.
After 2 months and there's still 6 teams empty or something, then we'll know that we would have a pretty good chance to play. So, and then I guess I would want to play if I was going to go down there. Not just be like a news reporter or anything like that. So,
right.
So very cool. I don't think any of the rules or anything are announced as far as how that's going to work. Same as last year. I don't believe I read that.
Yeah. It's the scenarios are to come, but there is one interesting twist that I picked out of the details here. And so the 2 books will be Age of Crusades, and the second book will be Age of Magic. So how about that?
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
So let her rip. So it's going to be the 2 like concurrent tournaments at the same time.
Exactly. They split the team up, right? Last year, same model. 2 players will be, fielding Age of Crusades on a team, and 2 will be doing Age of Magic. And then those scores from that collective 4-person team is what is ranked on the national stage or international stage.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. I would not have expected that.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
So I like that. It's mixing it up. We're going to talk about Adepticon. It's just important to mix it up and keep things fresh. So that's very cool. Very exciting. I'm sure we'll have more details about that. But I think you said it was SagaWorldCup.com.
Yes.
Where folks can get the juicy details.
That's right.
I guess I'll put a link below. That's within my power.
Yes, it is.
To do. Another piece of news, which just came out today, Monty, is the German FAQ came out. Were you aware of this, buddy?
No. What's up?
The multi-language saga. I thought surely you would be our man here.
With Lumen, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got some heritage there. Well, I got a message from Rickart from Rickart's Kleine Tavern, and he has a German Saga-based channel where he talks about Saga a lot. I think he does a lot of other things, but he and I talked. I've been messaging back and forth about stuff, and he was telling me about the Rodge rule and how they played it as far as the casualty removal and the fatigue bomb and stuff. So the German FAQ came out, and within the FAQ, basically it lays out my interpretation, the Rodge rule interpretation, the way that we talked about it. So we talked about this last time, how on the forum it was confirmed that that's how it should be played. But it wasn't in the FAQ yet. So now it's in a German FAQ. So it's slightly more official, not English official yet, but I thought folks should know that. I was pleased to hear. At first I was worried that it was going to be the opposite interpretation, and then it would just keep going. But
that's right.
He confirmed that was correct. So, thank you, Rickard. And you should go check out his channel. He's got battle reports and stuff. And you can kind of follow along if you're paying attention to what's going on.
Okay,
so
cool.
It's worth a look. So that's about it for the hot Saga news. Monty, anything else? I can't.
That's it. That's it. We got us folks who are trapped up north with the snow and everything. We got plenty of painting time, events to dream and plan for, but that's all the hot news and hot topics I can think of.
Oh wait, there is some hot news. Are you? There's going to be a Saga tournament in your neck of the woods.
Oh, yes. And actually, I will be at least one of the TOs, maybe the main TO. We're going to do one. If you're in the Twin Cities, you're driving distance from the Twin Cities, we're going to run a one-day Age of Viking event at Fantasy Flight Games Event Center. It's a beautiful space.
It's
we've
really
got
nice.
The muscle behind Jason Myers in Battlefield North. He does a fabulous job, a professional job of shining these up. It's all going to be posted up in Saga Storm. And the scenarios and some of the details and registration to follow soon.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping to make it over. I would really like to get a little practice before ACON against some of the big guns out there in the Midwest.
Right.
And it'd be a good goal to have some of my models finished by as well. I need outside reinforcement, Monty. I can't paint these figs on my own. I need outside stimulus to keep me on track. So Perfect. That would be helpful. So okay, that's it for news. We got some Q&A, some comments from last time here.
Yep.
Just going to delve into these as quick as we can. But if there's something worth talking about, we're going to talk about it. So I got the Cajun Cooper's Workshop. He just had a question about the Warlord, and he got confused about the presence rule, and he counts as 4 guys. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to clarify. The presence does not make you count as 4 guys as far as hit points go. So he was thinking you could take 4 wounds. So you could see how someone would think that. But present just means you count as 4 models for very unusual specific purposes. Now, one would be within the rules. The only time this is going to come up in the basic rules, the rule set when you're playing, that could be in any game, is if somebody closes ranks and you fight the combat and you win the combat, but you don't outnumber them, you will bounce back. So if you count as 4 guys, that'll help you win those combats. Does that make sense? Right. Did I say it correctly?
Yes,
I believe that
you
I did.
Absolutely did. That's a perfect example and the best example I can think of.
Correct. So in the basic rules, that's when it's going to come up. Now, there's 2 other times I can think of, which is in a scenario with conquest rules. I think you have to count as 3 or more guys. I don't know if being the warlord specifically makes you count as that, but I believe I haven't played many scenarios with conquest, but I looked at this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not sure if I can remember it correctly, but I believe in that scenario, having presence helps you out. And then there's lots of battle board abilities that if you outnumber the enemy, if you are outnumbered, if we're talking the Anglo-Saxon board, you have to count as 10 or more guys. So there's various abilities like that. So I thought that was a good refresher for any newbies out there. AS, he points out an interesting conundrum with Age of Magic, and I don't know if this has come up for you, but you can turn a Titan or you can turn a piece of terrain into a Titan with the Lords of the Wild, and you can go around, you can fight stuff, you can move, and you can actually go into other pieces of terrain, and then at the end of your turn, you revert to your piece of terrain, so now you have 2 pieces of terrain sitting on top of each other. So I was thinking about that, and it is weird. It probably shouldn't happen, but it's not really game breaking per se, because if you're in the combined area, you would just apply both effects essentially. And I went and looked, and the light cover and the hardcover wording, the way that it's worded, it wouldn't stack. I guess that was my one thing, that you could get light cover and then also hardcover, like if you were in those pieces of terrain. But the way that it's worded, that's not going to be an issue. So I think you would just play both as they are. Has that come up for you?
It hasn't, Rodge, and I think part of the reason might be just simply that for this to happen, there would be 2 things. First, you get the spell off, and then second, you would have to activate that Titan to move twice, because terrain is always going to be more than short away. And since the Titan's moving short, then essentially you're going to have to double move that Titan. And when you double move a thing, of course, they'll come in with a fatigue, which kind of takes away the juiciness of his attack. So in all my games, I've never seen it. I have seen my buddies skillfully use the, because they're using the terrain as the footprint for the model, right? And my buddy skillfully used it to, he saw what I was doing. He moved it right in front of my relief column, and I was just they were out of the game, because now I have uneven ground in front of me, and I don't have the dice to rush them through like I was planning on. Anyways, but it is a good conundrum. I really did. I kind of dug around. There's no super clear answer, but I think there's no big advantage to either making them pull apart or just having them over at the top of each other, and dealing with it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the way to go, because you could just make it so you can't. like go into terrain as him. I guess that would require, like if it was a FAQ, you need a pretty good FAQ description, and it's kind of outside the norm and outside of the rule book, and there's no precedent for that. So I think probably the best way to play it is just, if they overlap, they overlap. But if your group wants to do it differently, I think that's fine too. But yeah, the way you described it, that does point out why it hasn't probably really happened that often as far as I've seen. I don't really remember running into that myself, but the way that you need a lot of dice to get that bad boy going.
Yes.
Quite dice intensive. All right. Next up, we got Elliot Triebenbacher. These videos always put me in the mood to paint. Well, thank you, Elliot. Terrain theory was super helpful as well. Any interest in covering medieval/ancient battle tactics and how those poured over to Saga? Refusing a flank, maniple switch, defeat in detail come to mind. Obviously, there isn't going to be a 100% overlapping game, but it could be an interesting discussion. So I think that could be an interesting discussion as well.
Yes, it could.
We can put that down for a potential topic. I think it's kind of interesting.
And I have a hunch. I have a hunch that when the day comes when Age of Hannibal comes out, I would not be surprised if there is a Roman board play that says something like maniple switch or something that allows you to like take the speed up and just I don't know. Maybe not though. Maybe that'd be a little too weird. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Swap the fatigue counters.
That would do it. Then you don't have to move models.
Yeah, you just swap out your fatigue.
Yeah.
Send an email to Alex. Get him on the horn.
That's right.
Okay. RVB, very interesting part on the terrain here. Thanks for the input. Well, thank you for watching, RVB. Alan Wright says, always good when we get Rodge and Monte in the stream. And thank you, Alan. And I want to point out, Alan actually has a Twitch stream that he sent me a link to. So he participated in the painting contest last month. And we're going to have one this month. I forgot to say that at the beginning. Darn it. But stay tuned for that. And so we were sending emails back and forth, sending me pics of his models, and he sent me a link to his Twitch stream. So, Monte, do you know about Twitch? Are you in the right age group?
Is as far as I go into this world, but I'm not. I can learn it. I can figure it out, but I'm not in there now.
Yeah, I know what it is, too. I don't use it. I know Discord people like Twitch. They use Twitch.
Okay.
Maybe I sound like an old guy right now, but basically it's like YouTube, but it's live stream. Okay. So he's got some historical gaming on there, which obviously probably he might be the only one, or there's not a lot. There's a certain age group there, I think, associated with that, but obviously anybody can do it. So I'm going to have a link to his stream below. And I think he told me he wasn't streaming this week when this comes out necessarily. That's the thing that for me doing Twitch live stuff, like I have to like be there, so that sounds really unappealing to me. I'd rather record something at a certain time and then spend a month editing it, at my leisure and getting it out there. So that's more my style.
Same.
All right, Frank Frey, he pipes in, when I use my picks, large woods are my go-to choice. So
good choice.
This is great, and we should have asked people their go-to terrain pieces last time. Yeah. We got to get more interactive here, bud.
Yeah, we can work on that for sure.
If anybody wants to post their go-to terrain options for at the end of this episode, or after you're done listening, or right now, whenever you're listening to it, please comment below about what your go-to terrain choice is, because we're going to have some more terrain talk here as we get into our game. So we don't have any other topic to get into, so I think that's fine. Interesting choice with the large woods, Frank. I've played some games against the picks since last time, so I'm going to suggest a steep hill instead of the large woods, because the picks have an ability that can turn a piece of terrain into the hard cover, or they don't get the movement penalty. So they got to come at you, and that only counts for your guys. So when they're coming at you, you want them to be slowed down, but you don't want them to get the cover bonus from your juicy crossbowmen. So that's why I would suggest the uneven hill piece.
That's brilliant.
But I'll talk more about the picks a little later this episode.
I like it.
All right. Lastly, we've got Teddy Ninja. Love the Rodge with Monty show. When you're looking at a war band that can pick between equipment options, example, vanilla or great weapons, or between bows and crossbows, when do you go for the special options? So this one's kind of open-ended. It could be like a legitimate rules question. I don't think that's what it is, but the rules say when you are deploying your unit, that's what you get to decide. So as long as you have all the models, you are not honor bound or required to use any particular troops, and you get to see what the enemy has deployed before you before deciding. So I think this is one of the benefits of going first, usually, because you usually deploy half your stuff. The opponent deploys all their stuff, and then the guy going first or gal going first gets to finish deploying the rest of their warband. So if there's some disadvantages to going first, we've talked about before, but I think this is one of the advantages. You can see exactly what they're deploying. So in Age of Magic, for example, I think whether you want to use flyers or not can depend on whether they take a war machine, the long range war machine or the short range war machine. That might change. And oddly enough, we're going to talk about that a little later as well. But do you have any thoughts on this? Now, I'll let you go.
I was going to say, so tucked in here is an interesting choice, the bows and crossbow. This is like an area that almost could generate 10-15 minutes discussion by itself. I won't go all the way down the rabbit hole, but there are the people, when you have a faction that lets you take bow or crossbow, both levy, let's say, there's a faction that loves the crossbow, and they're right that you get more bang for your saga die because you're getting that +1 on your 6 shots. But then remember, your crossbow can't shoot consecutively, so you'd have to do crossbow shot, move, crossbow shot, whereas a bow, if you have the dice for it, could do shot, shot, shot. And so there is that dichotomy that for efficiency of saga dice, the crossbow is probably better, is better. But if you get in the moment where you have a lot of uncommons to power up your levy and you want to try to machine gun some critical unit off the board, you could do that more easily with the bow by just consecutive shoot.
Correct. So the bows in Saga, the shooting is not very decisive, and oftentimes the way the boards are built around shooting, it is multiple activations, because you're just not getting as nearly as many attack dice as you usually do as when you go into melee, because basically you're getting it for free hits essentially. So you raised some good points. And then with the Great Kingdoms, Age of Magic, you got the firearms to throw in there as well.
Yes.
Into the
Beastly.
So we've had a good discussion about that.
Yeah.
But so as far as the options go, I usually run the same thing almost no matter what I'm playing against, because usually there's some kind of plan. This might change as I go into different factions, but the Vikings, there's not much different as far as equipment options. Mm-hmm. I guess this is in Age of Magic, you have a lot more options, I would say, as far as switching it up, because almost every troop has multiple options just to cover all the different models out there. But I guess when you get into historical, there isn't quite as many options. But for the heavy weapons or great weapons, I like the great weapon warriors, so I'm always going to give them great weapons, and that's my plan. And there isn't really a lot that could scare me out of doing that. I guess the one thing I would consider is the flyers and the flying. As far as when I played the other world, I could make my wizard fly or my warlord fly. So I'd be hesitant to do that if I knew they had a war machine or some shooters. But if they didn't have anything, then there's really no downside to that. So I would just make that call. But for the most time, I do plan out based off my models. I'm not a prolific painter by any stretch, so I usually don't have all the additional models that I'd like to have just to be able to use everything. Do you usually have extra models, Monty?
I do. I like
switching out?
to. Exactly. I like to paint most options. It's maybe sometimes it's a little hard to paint all options, but I like to just
Yeah.
have them. Even if I don't use them, I might use them a couple times and then kind of shelf them. But especially in Age of Magic, you have so many options. I do want like to be able to come up to the table and not just be locked in by like the bare minimum. I want to paint a lot and be able to kind of reach in that box and try this. And like you said, with the Otherworld, I want to try Otherworld with heavy weapon warriors. I want to try Otherworld flyers. I want to try hunters. So I'll go paint all those up. And I would say, just kind of as a quick aside, if anyone is, especially in the historical world, is stressed about historical, I'm sorry, not historical, but is stressed about all their equipment options, then run Pagan Rus and you won't have any problems because they have almost none. It's very, very basic. It's a good faction, but you don't have to make a lot of choices.
Mm-hmm. So that sounds good to me. Hopefully we gave you some ideas, Teddy Ninja. If you have any specific questions after listening to us, please post below and we can further continue this discussion. But for now, let's move on to our hobby progress here.
Sounds
Monty,
good.
have you been sneaking it in?
Yeah. It's the machine was a little quiet over the holidays, but I got a little in before the holidays and then a little bit after my son flew back. I wrapped up some Gripping Beast Highland cows for Age of Viking objectives. I got some good time in, right? You can never have too many objectives. And who doesn't love hairy cows, right?
I got to make some.
Right. I've got, I finished up 4 more Victrix Viking Hearthguard with Dane axes. They're just badass looking models, and I just had to get them done. So now I've got like another point of those for my norse-gael. And then because I would like to run that one norse-gael faction as some other factions, like for example Pagan Rus, I finished up, assembled and painted up 16 more Victrix Viking warriors, just mostly shield and spear kind of looking guys, so they can look good as Pagan Rus. And I looked over and I had a little time. I had a giant mantic, I think it's called Abyssal Scourge or Demon, and he's a huge figure, and I had him on like a 60 millimeter base, and he was just really too big for it. It just didn't look right, so I popped that off and I put a proper 80 millimeter base down there with skulls, and it looks much better. I should have done that from the start. So
cool. So is he painted red with the rest of the gang there?
Yeah, he does. He's fitting within that kind of red to orange theme, very high, bright colors, because, you go into the gaming hall, it's a little dark. You won't lose any of my models from the other world. They're quite bright.
I like the sound of that. Playing the meta game of player's choice voting. Get their attention, right?
Oh, man.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that you've been getting it in. So you went on a little vacation up north. We don't really have to get in that, but did you sneak some figs with you on the road? Are you that kind of guy?
Not a thing. I want to remain a happily married man.
Okay.
And I sometimes am skating on slightly thin ice by, I get out a lot. I spend a lot of time on my painting room. And so, when we're going away for family time, I know you could maybe bag up some of your stuff, but none of that traveled with me. That stayed home. So that's good.
Okay. Well, good, man. I've done that a couple times, but not recently.
Living dangerously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Trick is to wait until they all go to sleep, and then you sneak out there like Kris Kringle and get your figs out and go to town. All right.
Good one. Oh my gosh, Rodge.
Hobby stuff. So
yeah.
I've got some failure and some success. So early December wasn't looking good for the hobby train. Got a little derailed. I was doing some video work and I got an Infinity tournament coming up. So folks will see on the channel that I had a trailer come out for that. And that kind of got me off the everyday kick. And then I'm really bad about just getting started again. So it took about another week to get me on track with the Eastern Heathens, and picking up a Nintendo Switch. Nintendo system didn't help either, I will say.
Right.
But I finally disabled it from the TV mode, and it could do like a little handheld thing. So now I just hide it around the house. So if I see it, I want to play it. So now I just keep it hidden
From yourself.
From myself. So I've got it under control. It's just the evening thing now, Monty. I'm good. No worries.
No 12-step program for you.
Yeah, but after that, the progress was quite quick because everything was base coated. There was I picked out 4 guys. There was some detail work that I wanted to do with the shields, and then they're kind of around their sleeves and their, I don't know the words for this stuff, but the fancy trim around the bottom of their tunics and around the neck pieces and stuff. So I was going to use that to help tie the colors together because they're really strong. Basically primary color, blue, red, and then green and white. And then they were going to have the trim would be what ties them together somewhat. But then also, you'll see once I airbrush them, I did an anti-zenithal or a nadiral type highlighting somewhat. So this is what I use on the Roman figures a little bit, but at that time I wasn't brave enough to really use the airbrush fully to really maximize color. And then I was using a Wada Eclipse airbrush, which has a 0.35 tip, which is too large to really do like really fine targeted detail work on a 28 millimeter model. So since then, I've got an Infinity CR Plus with a 0.15 tip, and I'm decent at using it. You can get a really, really tight little poof there. So some of it was just holding the model, and shooting it from the bottom to get like the underarms of the model and, the bottom of a shield and kind of the bottom of like the folds of a cloak. But then at some point you have to tilt it and you just got to go straight on, and you got to trust that you can just make the little tiniest poof. Now, I did use really thin down, like black and washes, kind of like a mix. So it took probably 2 or 3 coats, I would say, to really get that. So if you mess up like a little bit, you haven't like fully committed to it at that point. So you can, and by the end of it, as you're going through the models, you're like super confident. And then like the first ones, you're like really messing up a lot and you're not sure how to do it. So by the end of it, I got to be going pretty quick, and I was pretty kind of dialed in on exactly where I needed to go. So that also tied them together because they have the same shadows, the same dark. It was like a dark, not black, but kind of like a purple, maybe a lightish purple, a darkish purple in some areas. And then it did go all the way down to black because I was going to leave it not quite as stark, but then I accidentally, shot my load too dark on one of them. And I was like, oh, that actually looks really good, from farther away, it's more stark. And so I went back and did them all, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. So the actual airbrushing bit goes really quick.
Wow.
And then since then, it only took maybe 4 or 5 mornings to finish them off. I based them. I went back, did some black lining, did a little bit more washes on the skin. But I did like 1 extra highlight. So for highlights of those colors, the blue, the red, the green, I'm using scale 75 paint. So the white that I'm using is actually like a pale skin color, so it's not a full white, because you don't want to go all the way to like a white or like a black. So even when I did the shadows, I didn't do the full black. But I'm mixing that white into those colors to kind of tie that all together too, on the same wavelength, kind of. So they have the same shadow, and they have a little bit of the same highlight color in them. And that's kind of what's tying them together, even though they're kind of all over the place. So they turned out pretty good. I sent some pics to you. There should be some beautiful pics below as I speak right now.
Yep. I saw them in discourse and I loved them, and I looked at them and I could not figure out how you got that effect. So kudos to you. Now, like, having listened to this, it's going to take a little bit of work, and I'm going to want to like figure out the bits a little better. But you've now helped me figure out a 2020 commitment, and that is I have an airbrush and I have a booth, and I use it for World War II armor and vehicles, big pieces. But I've always wanted to, like, I always feel like I'm missing out. There's a part I should be using with 28 millimeter figures, historical figures, and now I want to do that. I want to kind of puzzle that out a little bit and experiment with what you've done, kind of follow in your footsteps.
Okay, cool. Well, that sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
Yeah. We should talk about our 2019 successes and failures again. That was another topic I was going to talk about. I forgot to announce, but we'll get to that. So, yeah, thank you for saying that. And they should look good. I was really liked how they looked.
Yeah.
Every day when I sit down, I kind of have a different opinion about how they look. So some days I think they look really good, and then some days I'm like, I don't know about this, but
I kept looking at them and I could not crack the code. I was like, okay, how did he do this? And I kept looking at them. I loved them. And I was just like, I couldn't figure it. So I didn't get to pick your brain because we've been busy. So now I know. And now it'll be a little tricky. I'll find some test models and I have to fit it in here somewhere. But that's the thing I want to do. Nice. Thanks, Rodge.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Good luck with those experiments. I will say, it works really well using the airbrush to shade, because I have done it on my Infinity models to highlight, and the highlights are smaller areas, so the problems of precision and application are trickier. You have to be more perfect, I think, to do the highlights. And one thing is, I could have done both on these guys. What I would have done is done the base coats, then airbrush the highlights, done the base coats on everything that wasn't those solid colors, and then I would have done the anti-zenithal, the shading, whatever you want to call it. It probably would have turned out really good. I wanted to have some super saturation on these guys, and I kind of liked my Roman models, just leaving them like that, the reds and the blues. I really liked how that looked, so I'm doing the similar on these guys, but with starker shadows than those guys to give more contrast. I could take it further, but I'm happy with how they look, and it's must work. So
yeah, well done.
I've got 4 of them are done. I've got 8 going right now. I did the airbrushing already. I'm working on the bases, got the detail work, so I should have a unit done, pretty full legal 12-man unit. These are just the levy, so I can't imagine how good the Hearthguard are going to look. I don't know. It'll be interesting. It should look good with chainmail too, I would imagine, and then all the shields. So I did I have so many different shields that I can't do the little big man transfers. So at the beginning of the project, I was like, yeah, whatever. I know how to do it. I can make good shields. But then once I got to some shields on these guys, I was like, ugh, I wish I had the transfers right now. But there's too many different kinds of shields. Like the V&V shields are different. Yeah. The Brother Vinny's shields are like wooden grained, so those wouldn't work. Yeah. I have some of the square, like pagan shields, so it's all over the place. So for the true shields, I'm gonna have to do some freehand on though. But I want to try it. I want to do like some ravens and stuff. I think that would be cool if I could get the hang of that. So another goal of the project. So coming along nicely. That'll be basically 25% of my starting warband here. So 2 units of levy. And then the rest warriors. So that's 24 levy, 24 warriors, and the warlords. So I don't know, the February 22nd, it's looking pretty tight here to get them done, but it'll give me something to shoot for. And then if I fail, there's always Adepticon. So
exactly.
Right. So good hobby times, bud. Let's move on to games. Have you been playing here? You said you were looking a little light there, so we did have all of December though. Did you get anything in?
I got in one game. I'm gonna triple that in the next 5 days. But it was a good game. It was a good game. I brought out my norse-gaels. This is probably about the 7th time I've run them, and you know it is like riding a bike. It gets a little faster. You can kick off the training wheels, and you kind of like pieces come together. So one thing that came together in this game was how to use my warlord like as the point of the spear. And so I was playing my buddies Jom's Vikings in Tale of Challenges. We sat there, we slapped down our challenges, and my build was 2 units of Levy Javelin, which seems like a lot, but they actually were heroes of the game. I did take Jarl Sigvaldi and 3 units of 4 Hearthguard, and my build generated 7 dice, and my buddy had 2 units of Hearthguard. Well, actually, it was 2 units of 6 Hearthguard, so that was 3 points, 3 units of 8 warriors, and he put everyone with Dane axes, so it was a killing machine. And as he put them out on the table, he just finished painting them. Scott's a fabulous painter. He put them all out on the table, and I said, dude, norse-gaels, my guys have some axes, you have all Dane axes. I go, we'll be done in 90 minutes. We can go get a beer pretty quickly. And sure enough, it was really quick, and at the top of 5 we could call it. So I like, not maybe play by play, but like one thing that was kind of funny was this was right after our Saga THORSDAY terrain show had played, and he'd watched it that morning, and so I know his Jom's Vikings with their cheap activations can just hustle en masse across the table. So I wanted to kind of create a couple choke points and kind of channel them to the middle of the table. So I grab a swamp, and he looks at me and he grins and he goes, well, I know you like grabbing 2 swamps, so I'll grab the other one. And he took it and he put it on the side of the board, like completely out of place. So I said, well, good job. Shut down my little maneuvers there. But I used something else to just kind of tighten up the middle. I packed him in real tight. And he came in hard on my levy. I built used the levy as the levy screen, and I had spilt blood up there to fill up my combat pool. And sure enough, he double moved into my levy to kind of take away the saga die. He fills up my combat pool, and then my warlord comes out with Norse and determination to keep him alive during my opponent's turn, and gobbles up the unit that ate my levy. And then I kept my warlord between the 2 packs of levy, and using expendable in the enemy turn, I kept closing ranks. He'd hit me. I'd dice out of the hits. I'd slough fatigue to 1 levy unit. I slough it to another. Then in my turn, I'd activate to rest. And then after I got them unexhausted, I'd activate the levy to shoot. And then he'd either shut them down, which cleans up their fatigue, right? So they start over. Yeah. That was a little bit of a mistake.
A dangerous game.
That's it. And I'd reload. And so in one turn, a pack of 6 Hearthguard with Dane axes hits my warlord, and he dishes 10 hits. And I dice out of 4, and I put 3 on my levy, and I have 3 on my warlord, and I just make it. The warlord's exhausted, the levy are exhausted, and I blow up his whole, 6-figure Hearthguard unit. They're gone.
Down.
Yeah, and that was it. That was kind of like, that was the back-breaking move. So I was like, holy cow. I mean, I know it's risky, right, to have your warlord as the point of the spear, but with Jarl Sigvaldi kind of messing things up in one area, and my warlord in the gap would be between these 2 levy units, my Hearthguard units didn't even do a thing. The game was decided, and I fought the game with like half my army, and they took it. And to be fair, Scott's new at running the Joms, but still, I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's some great synergy there. A lot of great abilities there, and sloughing the wounds onto the levy there worked out great for you. Now, I got some games in as well. We had a little round robin type tournament event with Brent using norse-gaels. It sounds like he had a list identical to yours. Scott with his Jom's Vikings, and then our local guy Zach. And so we just played each other once, and then whoever had the most points was the winner. So my first game was against Brent using his norse-gaels. I was using anglo-danes. I had a unit of vagrant warriors to give me a little something striking power and just to have fun, like I think I mentioned last time. So the first one was feasting and pillaging, looting and pillaging. There's 3 objectives that we had to grab And speaking of terrain, I put nice, huge terrain pieces to slow them down in front of the objectives. So that worked well. But got to watch out. A side effect was it created like a little castle for his levies to hang out in, and I couldn't really get at him easily. So do you run your levies in 8-packs? So he had three units of 8. So he had 3 Hearthguards. So he had like each Hearthguard had their little levy, sluffer unit to take the fatigue for them. So he was able to move quickly, double activate, put the fatigues on the levy, and kind of force things early. It was a really low scoring game, which actually worked out in my favor in the end because it's survival points. So we didn't kill a lot. I think he killed like maybe a unit and a half, and I don't even think I killed one unit of his. So he won in the end, just by sneaking off one of the things. This is one where, sometimes like the first Saga melee like sets the tone for everything else. Yep. So this was one where I don't like to use the anglo-dane abilities on my turn as an attack. I like to hold them back, but sometimes you got to do it and go in. But so I went in using my re-rolls with the extra defense dice, and somehow he still killed like 5 warriors because I didn't make any of the saves. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he had the objective. So the whole plan was, all right, I'll take the objective. I'll burn my abilities on my turn. I got to do it to get the objective. And, I'll just deal with it. We'll have a back and forth then. But so the first one, I go in and, okay, so he holds it, kills a bunch of guys. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's no good. So then I just sent in the Vagrant Warriors when I was planning to send them into a different unit. And then that other unit came in. And then later he used Determination to get the objective. And then I can't get the objective back because I can't engage them in melee.
Right.
Monty,
good one.
Very sneaky, Brent. We're on to you. So he played really well. Jarl Sigvaldi, that guy's pretty good. He's a beast. I tangled with him a little bit. It seems like, I don't know, what's the best strategy against that guy, Monty? Just avoid him or just go in before he gets anything going?
Yeah, you have to be careful. You have to be careful because every time you shoot at him and every time you engage him, you're giving him a fury token. And so in my game, I was taking some of the arrows from the Joms Vikings doing their witches. What is that, like northern Tempest? And so he'd shoot at him, and then I would get a token. So you want to leave him starved of fury. So I think you tend to like maybe recoiling from them, avoiding them, not mingling with them, and making him burn up his tokens and double move into combat maybe is the best option. I don't know. Okay. I've always been running him. I haven't faced him yet, so that's a good question.
All right. We'll get a game against Brent lined up here, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. I think if you're going to a tournament or something, I think he can be taken. I think you should probably get a game against him beforehand just to kind of figure out what your particular game plan is going to be. Because I was like, oh, I wish I had the archer unit because I talked about that last time. But then later on I was thinking, I'm like, well, actually, I don't know that I would have been plunking away at him like that because I didn't really have any way to make the shots decisive. So in any case, first game was against Brett. Lost it, but it was survival points, so we both had pretty high totals. Second game, I played against Zach in Tale of Challenges. He was using Joms Vikings, and Zach's a newer player. He's my regular guy I kind of play against usually, and I've gotten to using different armies against him just to keep it fresh. Otherwise, there's a glorious slaughter that takes place, so this was no exception. So I was able to max out the Tale of Challenges points for the most part and kind of wipe them out quite well. So last round was against Scott, and so we had a good game going. So we deployed our Swanties, which is what we call the swamps when we were deploying. So it's a Swanty now, everyone, instead of swamps. The word is out.
Wow.
And so I had one right in my deployment, not in my deployment area, but just out of it, on my side. And I got kind of tricky, kind of crazy with it, Monty. I had the Vagrant Warriors next to it, and then on my turn, I deliberately moved into the swamp to get those guys a fatigue, and then I could threaten either side, and it actually worked out well because he ended up coming across and then getting within the short of one of the guys, so I was able to go in, have 2 fatigues, but he was more fatigued, so... Playing with the Vagrant Warriors, have you tangled with those guys, Monty?
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've used them or seen them. But I know fatigue is good, like in your turn.
Yeah, so they have an ability where they can trade fatigue. I never used that or remembered to use it really. But basically they can, at the start of combat, if they have fatigue, each fatigue they have gets them 2 extra attack and 2 extra defense.
Wow.
When they use the enemy's fatigue, they get both benefits. Their armor goes up and the enemy's armor goes down.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
So as I was playing, I'm like, well, what's the right way to use these guys? You know, because you don't want fatigue, but more fatigue's good. But so kind of what I figured out, as long as you want a couple fatigue, but you want to make sure the enemy has more fatigue. So it's like a no-win proposition where you could use 2 of their fatigues to take yourself up twice, take them down twice. You have 2 fatigues, so you have a lot of extra attack and lots of extra defense. He can spend it up or down, but it's not going to... It just gets him back to even one way or the other. So you're still going to have a huge advantage. So I was able to use that and then in this game and kind of get those situations up. I will say when they're down to just a couple guys and they're exhausted, they can close ranks if you take them without Dane axes. So you could have like one guy generating 7 attacks and 6 defense dice or closer. You could have the attacks, close rank, it could be very tough to kill that one last guy. So I will say that. So maybe you want to shoot him out. But I think the key to fighting against them is just to go in before they have anything and just kill as many as you can, I would say.
Got it. Nice.
But so my game against Scott, he pressed early with his yams. He kind of went head on into the Danish battle lines. I had my abilities up. Made my saves with my rerolls, kept my Hearthguard intact throughout, and then we kind of just danced a little bit, but I kind of had the upper hand on him, and then he tried a couple moves towards the end, tried to take out those Vagrant Warriors who were hiding in the swamp. So that's the perfect place for them to camp out, and is in the swamp, because if somebody comes in, they take the fatigue. So Swanties and Vagrant Warriors go together, bud.
Good combo.
So I ended up beating him in a close win. So the way that the tournament worked out was we all had 1 win or 2 wins and 1 loss, except for Zach, who had all losses because he played. So basically Scott, me, and Brent all beat Zach for sure, and then we lost once against each other, kind of like a round table.
Yeah.
But since my first game, I had a lot of points for survival. So even though I lost that one, I got a lot of points. By chance, my second game was against Zach, and I was able to just max out all the challenge points, because he wasn't as great a tactician as the other guys were. They played each other. And so it was kind of head-to-head. In a closer game, they didn't get as many points. Yep. And then the last game against Scott was close. So he was kind of like my competition. So by beating him, then that edged me out. So I ended up being the victor of the tournament. And
good job.
But it was really fun. And we basically, I told those guys they had to run a tournament in Minneapolis next time. And it sounds like...
Yep.
They got you to do it. So
I'm
virtual high five.
That's it. It's going to be a good one. Nice.
So that was fun. I did play a couple other games since then. I will just go quickly over. I'm not going to get into the battles, but we played Picts versus Romans. We're mixing it up here again now that another tournament cycle is through. So I was using my Romans. the last Roman models. I was using them as the Age of Invasion Romans. Jeremy wanted to use his picks because he had a chariot built, so he wanted to use that thing. And that's kind of how I picked up on the strategy of the woods and the forest. So that's what he did in his first game. Had his crossbows in there, a couple other units, little Hearthguard packs. Those guys are...
Yep.
They can get very nasty very quickly with a couple abilities. Yeah, they can cap out at 16 attacks with a buttload of defense and armor. The Roman force I used wasn't good, Monty. So I just used my last Romans army, which is warriors and stuff like that. So the Roman board is a levy board, another levy board. So I figured that out after trying to play without a bunch of levies. So I'm a little saddened by that because I think I talked last time about the Age of Crusades. Romans are a levy board too, so I'd have to paint more guys. Yeah. So if I want to play the Romans, I'm going to have to paint more guys, I think, to get the levy ability, which are really good. I like this board better than the Crusades one, I think, because that's a more shooting levy. This is a little mix of both, and you can actually get some attack dice out of your levy. Yeah. So I think it could be good. I'm going to wait until the Invasions re-release comes out, idea. And just confirm that stays the same. Yeah. That you'd still want a bunch of levy, and then if that is the case, then I'll probably take the plunge and get another assembly line going of some levy to bulk out my Romans properly.
Nice. Good call.
And we played another game after that. I used Saxons from Age of Invasions versus the Picts. And wow, that is a really fun board to play. Holy crap. So I hope that one stays the same because no defense at all. There's a really cool combat bonus ability to ditch fatigue. I really doubt that's going to stay the same, but I hope it stays the same. Invasions. Really cool abilities that force you to multiple activate and coordinate attacks with units. So it's a offensive board, but it's not like the Vikings where I want to, if I can, I just want to load it all up on one unit and use all my abilities because that's going to be really good. You can do multiple attacks with the Vikings, but you just want to load it all up on one if you can and go to town. Where this one, the way it's set up, you can't really. You just kind of have to do multiple attacks and movement-based stuff. So it was really fun to play that one. And
Very good faction.
Yeah, we used the cards. So I had a couple Swanties on my flanks here and no woods in the middle. So it ended up being a victory for the Saxons. But another board worked really well with lots of little 6-man units. So I was just gross. I did the full 48 warriors. Is that 6 times 8 is 48? That's right. And then you break them into 6. I don't know how that is, but he killed a unit or two, and I was still generating the full 8.
Yep, which was 9 dice out of the gate,
which is really fun. So he had fun, I think. Nice. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it was good. So that's it. I hope to get some more games in. I don't know what I'm going to be playing, but we'll get it moving here. So let's move on to the topic at hand, which is actually multiple topics here. Somehow we're going to keep it going. I thought we were going to keep it casual, keep it short, Monty, but we want to talk about Adepticon.
Yep.
We want to talk about 2019 for ourselves, just a year-end review. And then maybe 2020, some goals. And then we've got another paint contest coming up here.
Perfect.
So, Adepticon, do you want to kick us off there as far as the rules, what people can expect in the games and scoring and such?
Yeah. So I'll sweep in, and then like when I miss some things, you can kind of come in behind me and spot me. But like the first thing I think that's useful to know is that while it's competitive, it's to me casual competitive. There are people who play a lot of Saga. There are people who come into these events and they play very little Saga. In fact, one time I played someone who admitted they were very brand new, and I was like, can I? And he was like, no, you just rip my army apart and I'm going to learn with a beat down. I'm like, oh, well, okay, I respect that. But I mean, so there's the whole range. So it's important to know there's Swiss pairing. If you're brand new, you will play some games and you will likely find someone who's at your talent level. So that's one thing.
By the end, at least.
Right? By the end, at least. Maybe not out of the gates. But there are no legendary units, heroes, and no mercenaries in the Age of Crusades or Age of Viking events. And then scoring, I think across all of them, is a combination of three things, which I really like this, right? It's a combination of your battle score. It's a combination of painting / appearance, judged by your peers, and then also sportsmanship as a component. So I find that's great. Seriously, it encourages a very casual, very fun vibe for the whole event. And I should mention real quick, if you go to the Adepticon website, you will see the Age of Vikings, and the Age of Vikings doubles are full. However, you could ask to be waitlisted because typically people might sign up and then something happens. There's a work conflict, or maybe, someone, sadly, like last year, we had a tough one where, the kids, the two of the players came down with like the flu right before they're supposed to drive out. So suddenly you've got, 3 openings. So waitlisting is always an option.
Awesome. Cool. So I guess what caught my attention there was no legendary characters.
Correct.
And then also no mercenary units this year around.
Correct.
So last year it was legendary characters were allowed. So I think that's cool. That sounds great to me. I like that we're mixing it up. So it's not just you and me deciding. Exactly. I don't know that it is actually you or me deciding. It might be the other guys. There's at least 3 other people running the tournament stuff, and they lift all the heavy stuff, so they get more of a say in what goes down than we do. But I think that's cool. I think that's great. I hope they change it a little bit every year to keep it fresh, because we like the Vikings, we like the Crusades, but you want to keep it fresh each year. Kind of figure out the puzzle this year, like one merc unit, but from the FAQ list of mercenary units. So based off that, what do you think you're going to see and what is going to be the best? Each year can be a different puzzle. Yeah. So I'm running the Age of Magic. The scoring is slightly different. It's kind of how I run this other event that I do, a fantasy event, but basically you do have your sports, your paint scores, and your battle scores. There's only going to be 10 points in each category. Should be listed all out. It should be very clear on what you need to do to win that stuff. I want to get a little controversial here, Monty. Maybe. Well, I don't know that I want to be, but I want to bring this up because I think this is an interesting time. So in the packet, I felt like I had to specify because the rules aren't clear one way or the other. But I did specify in the packet, just so everybody's on the same page, that when you are building your list, you list out your warriors, your Hearthguard, and your creatures, your monsters, and that's all you got to list out. If you have a sorcerer, you have to list your spells because that's what the rulebook says. But I did specify that for creatures and the war machines and everything else, those count as equipment options when you deploy. So you get to determine the type of creature you have at deployment. So I don't know that a lot of people play that way. It doesn't say to do that in the Age of Magic book, but they are listed as equipment options at the end of the book. That is how things work in the game of Saga with other troop types. Yep. If you think of flyers, the troops that can fly, it says specifically equipment option. So I think if you think about it and take a step back, I think you would come to the same conclusion if you thought about it. Now, whether you think that's right or want to do that with your buddies, I think that's up to you. But I think it's a good point to raise in your local area. For folks to just figure out which way they want to do it. I don't think there's a right or wrong way necessarily, but when we talked about equipment options, I think in Age of Magic, then it's a bigger deal because you have so many options, and the flyers are so vulnerable to the War Machine. That's the example I keep bringing up. So if you deploy second, you could see what you're going up against. Now, I did specify that you absolutely do need different models. Obviously, you cannot have an archer counting as a cavalryman in the game of Saga. So,
right,
and it gets a little muddier with the creatures, and what's a Titan versus a behemoth. I don't care what it looks like really, but you need to have two different models if you want to have. So if you want all three choices, you have to have a Scourge with wings, or really long legs, or he's levitating, or however you want to justify the flight, and then a behemoth model and a Titan model. What I don't want is to set something down and say, okay, this is a Scourge this game, and then next game this is a behemoth. I think you should have. If you want all the options, you got to assemble and paint all the options. So that's how I want to do it.
Very reasonable.
I think folks can confuse themselves too if they use the same model as different things. So I think that could be an issue as well.
Agreed.
But 3 games, we're using Book of Battles scenario stuff from the Book of Battles. So inspired by the Book of Battles. I'll clarify that. I'm not going to lock myself down with anything at this time, Monty. So Book of Battles for the other events as well. Is that in the rules pack, or as far as Vikings or Crusades?
Yeah, good question. It is not. I have started, and you know how it is. I mean, like you said, we've got a lot of people kind of busy. They got a lot of things going on. We've kind of started some chatter about like what the scenarios will be. And in fact, I will make sure that at least 2 of the 3 games in February here in the Twin Cities will be out of the Book of Battles. Ones that I think are prime for Adepticon, kind of like run them out, showcase them a little bit, get the players to think about it. And for whatever it's worth on the sideline, I'll be recommending Book of Battles ones, because to me it's really easy. You can make a packet and you say go to page 19 and play Tale of Challenges, and there it is. Okay. And we would also just real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't do a quick shout out for the fact that you have cards to support the Book of Battles, and I printed those out, and they're quite awesome. I will highly recommend them in my event, and I'll also recommend them if we carry them into Adepticon. Nice play rates.
Cool, yeah. So the Tale of Challenges card, I made a video about that. You go to rodgerules.com/resources to get your hands on those. So, yeah, thank you. It was kind of a pain in the ass making notes, but I wanted them for myself because I knew it'd just be a lot easier to track everything. So, cool. So if you're coming to Adepticon, make sure you own the Book of Battles. I was actually surprised by the number of people who did not have a Book of Battles last year. Some well-known Saga players who did not have a Book of Battles.
Right.
Silver Fox didn't have a Book of Battles. I'm bringing that up. Okay. And actually, I specified in my rules that you had to have it as to have a complete everything you need to play. So if you don't have it, you will lose a point. And you only have 10 points. So
that's right.
It takes a hit. It's an A to a B. All right. So I think we had enough Adepticon chat. It's year end. We weren't going to talk about it last time, but we would be remiss not to do a year end roundup of some sort here. So for Saga, just in general, good year, don't you think? So we had
good year.
One book come out, which was Age of Magic, and there was Adepticon last year, early in the year. And I think it generated some good buzz for Saga and definitely a lot more interest. Do you know that you gained any Saga players from Age of Magic? I know this kind of... we got a lot of dabblers, but I don't know that we got anybody to stick, so that might be a...
So that's a really good point. Off the top of my head, locally, I would say there are at least 3 players who will come out for Age of Magic, and when we switch it to historical, they come out less. They'll come out they've been out for like one or two of those events, but like Age of Magic when we ring the bell, maybe because it's new, maybe because it's shiny, maybe because like those people have a preference for the fantasy and the options, and like those boards get a little wild and the builds are wild, and they can pull out their Games Workshop models or War Machine and all this other stuff. That we get good legs for that, and there's a little bit of a crossover, but not quite as much for our historical. We did lose some of our historical crowd because Games Workshop is, frankly, I don't even play, but I look over from the sidelines and they're killing it. They're doing a lot of games. They're doing a lot of stuff. They're now into skirmish, and so like they pick people up with Kill Team and all that other stuff. Can't even
Warcry,
Warcry, thank you. Yes, all of that stuff. And so it's like I look over, I'm over playing my Saga. My buddies are playing Saga. I'm like, hey. And they're playing they're playing their thing, and that's what people should do. They should play exactly what they want.
Cool. Well, I think if people are just playing Age of Magic, I think that's still a win. The goal isn't necessarily to convert them to the pure
right?
Viking
the old man
Saga.
gaming.
So I think after a while, hopefully those folks will take the plunge in the other ones, but if not, that's cool. We also had the Saga World Cup this year, so that was a first for Saga. We had a lot of great tournaments throughout. We had the Polish Grand Melee. I believe that was the first one. Those guys did a great job. Saga THORSDAY moved to a monthly with Monte here. I gotta say, this has made my life a lot easier.
Good.
Thank you so much for agreeing
it's a lot of
to
fun.
doing it. It's really energizing talking to you, getting games in every month. This has been a great Saga year for me. Personally, I've been played way more games of Saga. I probably played more games of Saga this year than I have before then. Just in this last year. Age of Magic got me pumped. It kind of got a new group going. We're meeting every week. We still meet every week for the most part. So there's a lot of games that I've played. I mean, as we go through these segments, I always have multiple games to talk about, which wouldn't have been true last year. So it's a really good
job.
Saga year for me. Meeting the Swedish and Danish fellas out there was awesome. Got me just playing those Crusades games. Got me interested in historical again. And sky's the limit right now. Got me painted again. So I don't know if I finished any Saga models in 2019. I think the 4 that I did I started in 2019 for sure. I think they might have been finished in 2020. So I might have just cut that year out. I did some terrain. I rebased the demons.
Awesome.
So I was busy doing stuff now that I think about it. So I have some legitimate excuses here. But for you, Monty, so how many war bands? Has this been like a 5 war band year for you? A 4?
I think so. The Mutts, Great Kingdoms, Otherworld, Norse-Gael, Perry Crusader. That's it. That's it.
That's it. I couldn't even keep track of how many that was. Was that? Did you say 5 or 6?
I think it's 5.
5. So it was a 5 war band year.
You called it.
Oh, 2.5. Every 2.5 months, every 10 weeks, you're banging one out.
Got to do one.
So wow, that's tremendous. That's awesome. Has this been more than any other year for you? Are you on kind of a Saga high as well?
No, I mean I paint heavy in Saga, and I turn it over pretty quickly. I keep funding my hobby by turn and burn. So I play it. I play it just enough to become competent, and then I turn it over. I really should kind of drill down and like really try to master 1 or 2 of these one day. And here I say that, and my Norse-Gael, I think I'm finally becoming good at them. And my next games are going to be, I'm going to be running them as Pagan Roost, so I've already pulled the rug out from under them.
Well, I think, I don't know that sticking with one faction is necessarily going to lead you to master it or anything like that. So I've been playing I did the Vikings. I switched it up to the Danes. I used the Saxons, the Romans here. I did a last Romans, a couple games last month. So I want to play it all at this point. So I'm looking ahead for 2020. I want to continue with my heathens here. I want to get a lot of games in. I would like to make my Romans more playable in my book. So at first that was going to be just adding mercenary units because I think that's a good way to mix things up without necessarily having to jump to a new faction. But it's looking like it's going to be levy expansions for the Romans. So I want to get so my heathens warband. It's going to be huge.
Yes.
And usable for multiple armies. So I want to be able to do that with my Romans and be able to use that across the systems and have whatever I'm playing. I want to have what I think is a good list for that.
Perfect.
That's about all I'm willing to commit to. On the YouTube front, I would like to do some more battle reports. So a lot of my local players aren't fully painted. So if post below in the comments if you care or not that those guys are fully painted, or if you just rather see a battle report regardless. So I kind of been using that as an excuse, kind of like I could be doing battle reports, but I'm like, well, they're not painted. Nobody wants to see that. So if that's not a big deal to you folks out there, I can probably do some more. I know those are pretty popular videos for me generally. So it seems like people like battle reports for some reason, Monty.
Yeah,
I don't know what
they
the
do.
deal is. So I would like to continue this monthly with you, bud.
That'd be awesome.
At Adepticon. Let's do a face-to-face, live. Not live. No one can ever do anything live at Adepticon because they're all using the hotel's Wi-Fi, which is completely screwed because of all the gamers trying to use it. So, but we'll do it face-to-face. I think that'd be awesome.
That would be perfect.
I got to get you a large supply of beers. I think it's time for your first paycheck. I'm going to pay you in liquid if that's all right to you.
I'm in.
Spotted cows. Okay, we'll do it.
Most amazing.
So we'll continue these. Hopefully some battle reports. But I'm mostly excited right now to keep these games going. I've been getting 3 games a month on average. I'd like to, so that's just Friday nights. So I'm looking at a Sunday gaming day perhaps from time to time. So I want to get at least 1 game in a week, whether it's a Friday or a Sunday, because not all the Fridays work. So I want to have a backup day on a Sunday. So that's kind of another goal for 2020 for me. So,
I like that.
Okay. Anything else about the upcoming year, Monty? We're keeping it cash. We could have come up with lists and stuff, but
yeah. I mean, I've got a big Adepticon bolt action doubles to paint, a very big drop. Partisans, so it's like 60 plus figures, and there's no, you can't speed through partisans. They all are unique. But once I'm done with that, then my plate is clear. And then I'll have a little bit of time to just kind of look around and I have some spots I could backfill paint into, but just look around. Maybe Age of Hannibal will be on the horizon and it'll be time to paint some 28 millimeter ancients.
Yes. So another reason I'm not going to commit to a whole new warband yet. Well, first I'm only 4 models in to the current warband I committed to, but after that, I could see myself diving into that with my current streak on play. Just play it all. And become a Saga master.
That's it.
So good deal. So if you've had some 2019 achievements in your hobby, Saga, life too, we care about each other's lives around here, Monty.
That's right.
Post below if you have any goals for 2020. I'm curious to hear about them. I would love to see what you guys are up to and lend my support. Maybe a little accountability as well. I'm going to talk about it on the next episode maybe. So you better be willing to back it up. So speaking of backing it up, last thing here, we have another paint contest, buddy.
Nice.
So this one is sponsored by Gripping Beast once again. So they did it last summer, and they have generously agreed to sponsor this one. So the format is pretty much the same as the last one. So you need to paint one legal unit of Saga. One point of Saga. So a warlord is not a point. So don't paint a warlord, but everything else is a guy. You do a heroic champion.
Right.
Merc units are in. We will factor in the number of models into it. So once again, we're going to pick our favorite models. So not necessarily the best ones. So we factor in the number of models, painted horses as well. We'll get you in real big with us here. Some nice looking horses. I think the Huns can take a unit of 12 levy horsemen. Is that right, Monty? I might have to refresh myself.
Yeah,
But
I know the Mongols have, I think, 12 camel levy, believe it. If you really want to break your back, right?
A
Camels
camel,
are hard to paint.
Yeah, interesting. Is a camel harder to paint? Do
to-
camels usually have fur on the model?
Yeah, they've got fur.
That
They've
can
got
dry brush?
color changes, and then like often they've got like they don't have a saddle, so they got like cloths running off the sides and jugs, and there's just it just seems like I get into a camel model, I'm like I love camels, and I go to paint it, I'm like oh my gosh, there's so much here.
I don't know. I haven't painted a camel, so I can't confirm. But I would say, if you can dry brush, can you dry brush? Is it that kind of fur you can dry brush?
You can.
See,
You're
that's
right.
a problem with like a horse.
Yeah.
Is they're always smooth all over, and that's the kicker. But if you think a horse is harder to paint than a camel, post below, and we'll have a little informal
Debate.
poll. So to get back to it, we'll pick our favorite. They will get a prize from Gripping Beast. We will choose one submission. They will get a prize from Gripping Beast as well. So this is going to be one unit of Gripping Beast models, your choice. So if you win, I will let them know that you won, and you get to choose something off their website, and they'll send it to you, 1 point of something. So that's pretty much all the universes are covered there. So thanks to Andy and the lads at Gripping Beast for the support. So the contest starts now, and it's going to run through. So we're going to. So these episodes have been coming out on the first THORSDAY of the month. This one is coming out the second THORSDAY due to our Blizzard issue. So the next episode is going to come out on the second THORSDAY as well. And then we'll rectify it after that, get back to the first ones to give everybody a full month. So the deadline is going to be February 10th to get your picks submitted. So we're going to need a before and after photo. So it's going to be the same as last time. So you'll just hold your models up in front of the video at this point when me and Monty. So Monty, you are going to look to your right and to the down and give like a frowny face, and like, because this is the before, so you're like, okay. And then when the models are done, please include a pic of the thumbs up and the smiley. So like, all right, get your thumb a little bit by your face here, Monty.
Right. There we
so
go.
We can get out, and big smile. You like what you see? Okay, cool. And then you could submit 4 other photos as well besides those. Please submit those to rodgerules@gmail.com. The email will be below. But that is it. I'm looking forward to all the entrants. Once again, any age, anything is good. 4 models is good. 12 models is good. Whatever you want to do. So are you excited, Monty?
I'm excited. It's going to be cool.
You didn't know you'd become a painting judge. When
I know.
Agreed.
It's an interesting twist in my life.
Well, you're kind of a professional here. You've done 5 war bands in 1 year. That's an achievement. What I think I might do is keep track of the number of models I painted over the year. Have you done that? I'm going to do that. I'm going to write it down.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
I used to. I kind of let that fall off the wayside, especially once I did away with 15mm painting, because my numbers back there were in the thousands. Seriously, I did some monster projects.
Oh, that's insane. I want to play a number of models painted, and then a number of games played, because I said I wanted one a week.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
I'm going to see how many I actually get in here. So
I like that.
If you want to play along with that, that would be awesome to see how everybody's doing. But maybe we'll jump in and refresh those numbers every episode here, perhaps. That would be interesting. Way to keep on track. So, okay. Well, it's been a good time talking to you, buddy. I thought this was going to be quick. I guess we had a lot to cover after all, as it works out every time. So,
exactly.
Yes, please get in on the paint contest. Please post below if you think a horse is harder to paint than a camel or easier. I don't remember which, but give us your thoughts there. And then also post below what your go-to terrain piece is. Is it a large woods? Is it the hardcover, the rocky ruins? That's a favorite around here. The Swanties. People love those things. But let us know all that stuff, and we will catch you guys next time. Alrighty?
See ya.
Later.
Saga!